let's talk to Erol Morkoç, who's a spokesman for Republicans overseas here in the UK. Good morning to you, Erol.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Actually, I should say you're actually speaking to us from the States in the very early hours of the morning. Much appreciate that. A lot of pressure on Donald Trump over this. Look, it's not the first set of mass shootings. It won't be the last. And the reality is it won't be the last because America is, let's face it, awash, not just with guns, but awash with the semi-automatic assault weapons, which, frankly, every other country in the world, in the Western world, has deemed to be illegal and too dangerous for normal members of the public to have. Do you think that Trump is right to blame mental illness for pulling the trigger on these weapons rather than the actual fact that those weapons are there?
Well, Donald Trump, to be fair, he condemned racism, bigotry, and white supremacy specifically. He mentioned the consortium of video games, public health issues, violence in the culture, this sort of, collective effort. So absolutely, having a multitude, hundreds of millions of guns in a country is an overt, clear issue that plays into this. But Donald Trump did not completely ignore the rest of the social issues. So I would have to push back on that. He did condemn racism, white supremacy, these kind of things. And the mental health issues, these sort of things are real substantive issues with this gun control issue, because this is a Second Amendment issue in the United States. It's not quite the same. And obviously your listeners can disagree with that. It can be a contentious issue. But in this discussion, at least, with the Second Amendment as it is, you do have to look at the full scope of things. So
yes, I think we hear a lot about the Second Amendment. Again, I'd like to say that the key word there is the amendment. It's an amendment to the Constitution. You've amended the Constitution many times. You can amend it again. The idea of people being able to arm themselves as a public militia against a government that was trying to do them harm is very different from individuals buying, effectively, for all intents and purposes, are battlefield weapons to use on their fellow citizens. That's something that there's no way in the world that the founding fathers thought that was ever going to happen.
Oh, well, I'm sure, yes. You couldn't predict the technological advancements in weaponry, but that Second Amendment was written right after the Constitution was written. It's baked into the ethos of the American situation. I can give you a strange topical example. My mother went to high school in 1969, 1970. There was a shooting range on the base. The students would come, they would practice, and the concept of a school shooting was beyond the pale. Yeah. Those weapons were they were locked up there, kept down there. Now, I'm not here to argue that, it's all mental illness or it's all this or that, but there has been a huge cultural shift as the way people behave. And that Second Amendment is something that a generation, people came home from Vietnam, for example. They brought those guns home with them. Yeah. You didn't have the mass shootings come out until later. So entire generations of people, when you look at 150, 200 million gun owners with over 1 billion rounds of ammunition, who've never committed a single crime and never would. And these people are just as horrified, petrified, stupefied by the situation. And the country right now, as everybody can see, is quite lost and in turmoil as these problems are coming up and sort of shattering our ethos, our foundation, our amendments that our country sort of took strongly, and that community feel that used to exist, that doesn't exist anymore. And that's, I think, the most serious issue.
Well, this is it, isn't it? Because look, there are other countries that also have a lot of guns. Canada has a huge number of guns as well, and yet doesn't see this level of shootings. If Donald Trump is blaming mental illness as part of the problem, and mentioned social media as well, but then that would be an argument then for making treatment for the mentally ill more accessible, cheaper, easier, free healthcare at the point of need might be a solution. But it's interesting that the solution isn't taking away the guns, and the solution also, isn't it, making sure you can provide free, accessible healthcare for those who are mentally ill. And it is interesting that there doesn't seem to be a solution at all other than more guns.
Well, the solution is very complex. Honestly, there isn't a solution. Right now, they're looking at bipartisan legislation for red flag laws to be able to fund local police departments when they get family members or other examples. But again, all of this isn't going to stop the shootings, because we understand that you can't be everywhere at once. You can't stop everything at once. I mean, you do have terrible shootings in places like New Zealand, where you wouldn't expect such.
Oh, no, you had a shooting. No, you had a shooting, and then again we had a massacre in Australia. We had a massacre in Australia, and then they took away the guns. We had a massacre in Dunblane in the UK, and then we took away the guns. And we don't see them since. We don't routinely see mass shootings in any other Western country than America. Let me just give you some information here. Look, you'll already know this, but just for the benefit of my listeners, you say that banning the second amendment is so crucial to the American psyche, and yet Bill Clinton in 1994, when he was president, was able to ban assault weapons. Mass shootings dropped by 43%. Now, still massive loads of shootings, but mass shootings where 4 or more people are killed dropped by 43% because people didn't have access to the weapons that could kill so many so quickly. When George Bush was president, the Republicans allowed that ban to expire in 2004. In the years following, mass shootings went up 230%. Does that not suggest to you that actually banning certain weapons, not stopping people owning a handgun if they feel they want to protect themselves and they feel it's their Second Amendment right, but banning people from having access to weapons that, for instance, the Dayton shooter in Ohio killed 9. He had a 100-round magazine. It was fast-firing. He was able to kill 9 and wound 27 people in just 30 seconds. Banning those sort of weapons, that doesn't infringe on Second Amendment rights, does it?
Well, I mean, sadly, despite all what you said, that's why they repealed it, the way that they're looking at it as it does. Now, handguns actually do kill more people than long-arm rifles. Now, obviously, it's not in the same way of these mass horrific shootings, and your statistics are absolutely correct. And I do think there needs to be a comprehensive reform on how we allow people to have access to this. But, again, it does sound weird, but in the Second Amendment, it was sort of a violation to dictate you could have long arm or short arm or whatnot. Now, these are not fully automatic rifles, as you and your listeners know. They are semi-automatic rifles. They can commit these horrible crimes, these terrible things. And your statistics are right. There needs to be new sort of background checks, whatever we can do to legislate that. But it does create a constitutional crisis.
But so would you... Do you think that any American citizen should be allowed to sort of walk around with, I don't know, a surface-to-air missile? I mean, where do you draw the line?
Well, that's where you have to draw the line when it comes to, explosives and like C4 munitions.
Why?
Stuff like
Why?
that.
I mean, surely, I mean, guns actually work through explosives to all intents and purposes anyway, which, I mean, same, different technologies, same principles. Why not allow everyone to walk around with a nuclear bomb? I mean, it's the same difference.
Well, they don't let people walk around with automatic rifles, for example. They drew the line there specifically. Like there is a line between what is considered civilian purpose artillery and what is considered military artillery.
What is the civilian purpose of a semi-automatic rifle that can fire 100 rounds in a matter of seconds?
I mean, it might sound dramatic, but the civilian purpose, as far as it's in the Constitution, is sort of to keep a checks and balances between the people and their government. Now, it sounds a little bit odd, but the same people on the left who think that there's an extreme fascist in the office, all these horrible people are running the world, and that, we need to resist and hashtag revolution, those people are also calling to disarm, and it seems antithetical if he's trying to have this giant sort of thing. So you asked the question. That's the underlying principle from 1776 as to why that is in there. Now, we can debate it in 2019, and it would be a completely fair debate, but that is the original historical answer. As a historian, that's what I can give you.
That's absolutely fascinating. Erol Morkoç, thank you so much for joining us, spokesman for Republicans overseas. Very much appreciate that. Coming up.